Coming out, my name is Adam Briggle. I'm a professor in the philosophy department here at the University of North Texas. And in a moment I'm going to introduce tonight's event and our panelists and tell you how this is going to work. But I want to just have a few minutes to set the stage with kind of some remarks about why we're here. I think we're here tonight because the city of Denton is currently undergoing a process to revise its ordinance for natural gas drilling and production. I think all of you know that Denton sits on the eastern edge of the Barnett Shale, which some people say is the largest onshore reservoir of natural gas in the U.S. A recent study commissioned by the Fort Worth Chamber of Commerce concluded that since 2001, the Barnett Shale has generated about $65 billion in economic activity and created about 100,000 jobs. Yet many are concerned that this economic boon may be coming at too steep of a cost in terms of environmental and public health impacts. And so it is, to say the least, a controversial topic that cuts across law, ethics, economics, environmental, and public health science. The question of what our city's ordinance should look like, I think, is an extremely complex one, both in terms of substance. What values do we prioritize over others? What restrictions should we have in place and why? And in terms of process, how should we handle scientific uncertainty? Who speaks as an expert, and how do we integrate expertise with democratic decision making? So to try to help with these thorny issues, myself and others created the Denton Stakeholder Drilling Advisory Group. It's a collection of about 12 Denton citizens. We are in no way officially affiliated with the city, but we do try to work with city leaders and the official task force to help them in the complex process of drafting a new ordinance. I've got the blog up here. It's Denton Drilling, and we also have a Facebook page. The mission of the DAG, the Drilling Advisory Group, is to advise Denton City Council on the formation of a new gas drilling and production ordinance, to foster public education and civil conversations about the issue, and serve as a clearinghouse of relevant information. And we do that mostly by trying to collect stuff on the blog, and also by hosting events like the one tonight and like the one next week. Here, so I thought I would plug while I've got you here. Same place, same time, a week from today, we're going to have a panel discussing the environmental and public health impacts of drilling. Alyssa Rich will be here, Tom LaPointe, and I'm sorry, Tom, your name is slightly misspelled there. And Cheryl Blazer will be speaking about the environmental and public health impacts. So I invite you all to come to that and spread the word, please. Okay, so tonight we're very fortunate to host 3 speakers with a wealth of knowledge and experience. The goal tonight is to learn about the regulatory landscape. That is, who's responsible for making which decisions and on the basis of what principles or laws, and to gain insight into some of the decisions that oil and gas industries make given this changing and evolving regulatory context. So what I first want to do is introduce the format of the event, and then I'll introduce our speakers and we'll get going. Each speaker has 30 minutes and they'll go in succession. I will moderate the question and answer session afterwards for the last 30 minutes, and I'll call the event to a close precisely 2 hours after the first speaker starts, which will probably be about 9:15 or so. If the speakers want to, of their own discretion, stay and answer one-on-one questions, that's up to them, but the event will be officially closed at that point. Now, the Q&A session is going to be mediated through the system of cards. Amber's been handing them out. If you haven't got one yet, track her down, get her attention. What you'll do is write your question on a card, and then I'll collect those, and I'll be moderating the Q&A. So hopefully I'll be able to leaf through the cards a little bit while the speakers are talking to see if I can identify some common questions so that we can maximize our bang for the buck, so we can try to answer several questions that are sort of revolving around the same theme. Okay. That's, I think, about it for the procedure. Now let me briefly introduce our speakers. Our first speaker will be Jay Ewing. Mr. Ewing is the Manager of Completion and Construction at Devon Energy Corporation. It's headquartered in Oklahoma City. Devon is a leading independent oil and natural gas exploration and production company. Mr. Ewing is here in part as part of Devon's Ambassador Program, which is part of their commitment to corporate social responsibility and community outreach. And I also want to recognize and thank Amanda Beard, who was instrumental in getting this set up, so thank you, Amanda, very much. Our second speaker will be John Tintera. Mr. Tintera is the Executive Director of the Railroad Commission of Texas. Established in 1891, the Railroad Commission is the oldest regulatory agency in the state, and the state legislature has granted it authority to regulate some, but not all, aspects of oil and the gas industry in Texas. In addition, I want to point out Mr. Walter Gwynn, who I think will be taking part of the presentation, if I'm right, who is, let me find where I'm at. You are the Director of the Railroad Commission District 9, is that right? Which is this area here.
Yes, that's
okay.
Right.
Thank you for coming. And I also want to recognize Gay McElwain, who is the Marketing Director, Public Outreach, okay, who set this all up for me, so thank you very much. And then our third speaker is Tony Walker. Mr. Walker is the Dallas-Fort Worth Regional Director for the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. The TCEQ is the environmental regulatory agency for the state of Texas and strives to protect our state's human and natural resources consistent with sustainable economic growth. It too has authority to regulate some aspects of the oil and gas industry, and I'm sure that Mr. Walker and Mr. Tintera will help us to understand how the regulatory responsibilities are divided up between their agencies and how this fits, hopefully you'll speak to how this fits into the federal landscape, or maybe a little bit. Okay, now the last thing from me, and maybe the most important thing, I want to emphasize a key point here. All of these speakers have volunteered their time to be here tonight. In fact, Mr. Tintera drove all the way up from Austin to be here. So I think the very least that we owe them is our gratitude and our respect. I expect and demand of us all tonight that we maintain a civil atmosphere. So I'm going to have a zero tolerance policy for any disruptive outbursts. Now, I do hope that you have written tough questions on your cards. It is good and indeed necessary that we openly explore our differences, but it's also imperative that we do so in an open-minded, respectful, and civil manner. So in that spirit, let me ask you all to join me in welcoming our first speaker, Mr. Jay Ewing from Devon Energy.